So, good afternoon. This is part 32 that I'm going to talk you through now, and this is going to be about the engine and gearbox going in and some of the things that I found out when I was doing that little exercise. So here are the two threads, right? So this one goes in the aluminium housing into the remote, and this one is a standard UNF bolt. So just be mindful of this when you're putting things together, right? That the coarser thread goes in the aluminium so that it gets more strength than this one, because this is a finer thread and it'll pull out easier. So anyway, the coarse thread goes into the aluminium. Gear stick, lost this in my shed, couldn't find it. Took me about 3 or 4 hours to find it. Anyway, fitted the Deutsch plug now, and that's ready to go in. Lots of bolts everywhere, bolts, washers, nuts. All right, so the engine is now in, and engine mountings are interesting. So I use nylock nuts myself to save having to try and hold a spring washer and a float washer on and then try and put the nut on. So to do that, you have to lift the engine because the nylock nut is longer and won't go between the chassis rail and the thread on the end of the engine mounting. So lift the engine up, put one on, a couple of threads, push the engine over to the other side. Then you can get this nylock nut in, tighten that up, drop the engine down, and then just leave them backed off a couple of threads. So when you put the cross member on, you don't put any additional torque onto the rubber mounting to prevent premature failure. So yeah, that's why you do that. So they're left loose. Engine. So this is now on, and the way I've done this, yeah, I did this side first. So I assembled everything loose, put the mounting on here, then inside here, I'm having a bit of trouble showing inside there. I'm hoping you can see the engine, the gearbox mounting stud comes through and it goes into the front hole, not the back hole. If you put it on the other hole, then these holes don't line up with the chassis rails. All right, so that's important. And also this bracket inside here, the long edge goes to the back and the shorter edge goes to the front. And when I got this one, it was installed incorrectly, so that there's a bit of a divot taken out of the stud, the bolt that goes through. And also make sure you have the flat washer on the top and the nut on the bottom. This one was the other way around, when the nut was on the top and it was jammed solid against the bottom of the gearbox. So it's all put right now, these in. So anyway, so the next exercise was to get that gearbox mounting in. So I got the gearbox mounting in, got this started on the thread, then I went round to the other side, I had to cut 4 threads off this one, but still had the minimum engagement of 4 threads to know there's enough engagement in there. And up the top there, I'm hoping you can see the inhibitor switch. That's why it's very handy to do the wiring on the gearbox before you actually push it into place. So Deutsch plugs now, so this is the one for the solenoid. And then this one here is the one for the gearbox. That one there is the one for the gearbox. The gear stick, sorry. That's for the gear stick. For now, I've just got to lift this into place and attach all that and then tighten up the front engine mounting. And I find it, and then when I've done that, then I'll tighten this up, steady bar up, and I put this nut and bolt arrangement so that the bolt comes from the top, so that if the nut does actually fall off, then the bolt will stay in place. If you do it the other way around, then any benefit you get from having this arrangement here disappears, because this becomes disconnected from here and will rattle. All right, so that's why I'm doing that. This is still loose, so I've got that to tighten up, and I'll do that when the cross member's been tightened up. I'm going to leave the gear stick out until I've finished messing around inside the dashboard. All right. Steering rack's off again. Seems to come off with a lot of regularity. So I'll put that back on again now when I've tightened everything up, and then that's it, done.